tell you how bad I wanted that tournament.
The challenge between Rayo Breckenridge and Bill Dance.
Pilot's doing the talking. He said, I just want you to know where you're fishing. I'm going to fly over it. And nobody even knew where it was.
The Classic, man, this was a World Series. This was a Super Bowl.
I believe we took off out of New Orleans, which is a good place to leave from. But we piled them in there. They all rendezvoused. They had a great party and celebrated the kickoff there in New Orleans. And
You hang out with them, and then you get on the plane the next day, and you get up to 10,000 feet, and the pilot comes on and says, does anybody know where we're going?
We knew we were going east. Didn't take a mental heavyweight to figure that out. To where we were going, we didn't know.
You were going anywhere. We're going back to Vegas, going to Lake Powell, going somewhere in Texas. You ask 24, 25, 26 guys, you got that many different opinions.
We're putting out rumors everywhere, just driving them nuts. And I can remember the guy said the tackle's not a problem, but the problem is we don't know what kind of clothes to bring. So they got suitcases with every kind of clothing, and the wives were even raising more Cain because they went along on these trips and they didn't know what to wear.
The pilots would even come in and joke with you a little bit. You know, they'd try to rattle your mind where you were going. It didn't matter where you were going, that's where you were going. But the reason you'd want to know is where you could start thinking.
Ray's got the white envelope that he tears open after he's taken the vote from all of the participants, you know, about where they think it might be.
Okay, our plans of travel today take us due east to the great state of South Carolina. Clark Hill Reservoir. And I mean, I look and I look around on the plane, and 2 or 3 of the guys are looking like a cow looking at a new gate. What did he say? Clark Hill Reservoir. Where is Clark Hill Reservoir? He said in South Carolina. Well, I never heard of it. I hadn't either. What kind of lake is it? Is it deep? Is it shallow? Does it stay muddy? Is it clear lake? What's the terrain? Is it full of timber? I don't know. I've never seen it.
The pilot's doing the talking. He said, I just want you to know where you're fishing. I'm going to fly over it. And nobody even knew where it was.
The captain would say, to the left of the aircraft is Clark Hill Reservoir. And then the plane would be like this. Everybody on the right side would go, whoa, to the left, and the plane would turn up like this. Well, I think he'd bank a little bit where everybody could see out the window. So I said, yeah, look at that long point. Oh, yeah, there's a cove right there. Oh, yeah, it was a thrill. I mean, it was really, you talk about anxiety and boy, I tell you, your heart was beating 900 miles an hour. But it was wild. Great times.
On several of those flyways, I'd get up with a bullhorn or a speaker, whatever I had to work with, and I'd offer $100 to anybody that could tell me where we were headed. I was really nervous about that because I'd hate like heck for 30 guys to claim my $100. But nobody ever guessed it. And I still got the $100.
Clark Hill was a good lake. I remember we booked that state lodge before it was ever opened, before it was ever finished. We booked it as a Mutual of Omaha insurance convention.
Here again, we're playing the same folly of having a classic where nobody knows we're coming. And we did all the little dynamics of trying to sneak the boats in and under the cover of darkness.
The story was that they had shipped these Ranger boats in secret all across the United States there to the tournament site.
He used the same old system of every couple hundred miles he'd call, and he would zigzag them all over the country. I mean, he would torment these guys. Again, the reason being, everybody wanted to know where they headed.
And had to cover them up and travel at night and do all this, and they made a great story out of it.
And that made a game of it, and Harold beat them all. He kept them guessing.
We brought the boats in there in the middle of the night, and we hid them in this barn, and we put up a barricade going into this barn that said, danger, stay out, electrical wires. The manager of the lodge, the state park, lived right across the road. And he didn't even know what was going on, and we worked all day right across from his house.
really it was a nightmare, to be quite frank, and it was a very foolish experience looking back on it. I mean, the first one, the secret for the first one would have probably been, was smart. But after that, I think it was probably foolish on my part, and I'm the reason we didn't go into the tell the world after that first year.
Later on Bassmaster Classic Yearbook.
Clark's Hill and Hickory Knob Resort is a long way from no place.
But it was a great body of water, good fish, good structure. It gave everybody that was there an opportunity to use their best lure.
Bassmaster Classic Yearbook is brought to you by Citgo, Lowrance, Flowmaster,
everybody over from Nashville, Georgia, all thought we were going to have a great event there. There was some quality fish in Clark Hill.
I think people finally were happy that they was going to a lake that they could catch some fish. They'd been on 2 tough lakes prior to that. This was a good opportunity to show their skills. They did it.
Third Classic at Clark Hill, it was a beautiful lake. Best I can remember, it was quite large.
A very typical southern reservoirs. It was, again, a river system, and they put the dam up. The Corps of Engineers, I think, probably built that as well.
But it was a great body of water, good fish, good structure, standing timber, drop-offs, creeks. It gave everybody that was there an opportunity to use their best lure.
Kind of like a lot of the lakes over in that region, it's more river lake than it is impoundment type, big fat lakes.
I don't recall Clark Hill being a particularly open lake like Sam Rayburn, for instance, where you had these huge, vast areas of open water. But it seems like it had a lot of creek arms, and that was where most of the fish were caught.
A reservoir that, you know, if you had the time, everybody could have caught a bunch of fish on it. But for one day of practice, just a tremendous amount of water to cover.
Clark Hill was a good lake, but we had to have a facility that would house all the people, and we had to have banquet facilities and stuff like that.
The resort was we were the first people to even be there. It was they pushed it to open it up so we could have the event there.
They had a big, nice facility where we held all of our functions there. It was a little cheaper than the gourmet meals we had in Nashville, but we all made it, and it was a fun time.
Yeah, South Carolina's got some beautiful state parks. It was relatively new. We were treated really well again, not only by the state park people, but by the citizens around there. They took part, and they were proud to have that group there.
It's hard to remember. They had running water, they had a bathroom, and a comfortable bed, and good food. So that's all I remember.
It was first class. It was very well done. I mean, he never did things by half. People always left, whether they finished first or last, I think with a glow. And I don't mean from the beer.
We had to weigh in again out at the marina, and I don't remember the crowd being as big because we wasn't near a city like Nashville or Vegas or, you know, some of the other places we'd been.
The atmosphere was totally different. Clark's Hill and Hickory Knob Resort is a long way from no place. It was out in the middle of literally the country.
South Carolina did a good job of helping us promote the tournament as far as publicity and so forth. And keep in mind, again, we did all those dummy things Scott did of sneaking in, and then, of course, we were there and gone before anybody really knew it. But we did have some pretty good press, and by the time the Classic was coming to an end, we had some pretty darn good turnouts.
The crowds wasn't as big. Now, they was big for us because we never had seen a big crowd. So we thought it was a big crowd.
There was a few locals that were there, but primarily it was, as I said, basically turned out to be a private party.
That's the tournament that I found out is almost totally impossible to catch a greased pig.
The entertainment one night was a greased pig race. It was that kind of fun time.
We had a dress-up night, you know, bib coveralls and straw hats, howdy partner.
It was country night. Everybody wore bib. We furnished bib overalls for everybody in the tournament. And part of the festivities, of course, we had a lot of singing and cutting up and whatnot. And we had a big barn they had there. We set it up so that we could have the greased pig contest. We got a little old pig about 20 pounds and greased it up good and turned these cowboys loose to try to catch this greased pig.
One of the highlights of that Roy Clark from Hee Haw was a guest entertainer. He spent the whole week with us. To me, that was like Barbra Streisand might be to somebody today, because I had been a fan of his for a long time, both for his musical talents and had watched him on television for a good while, and they had something every night.
He always had good entertainment. The wives had a great time at night. But most of the fishermen, all they were thinking about was, I wonder if those fish will be there. Have those fish moved out? Are those fish going to be there? They were just thinking tournament and getting a good night's sleep.
Coming up on Bassmaster Classic Yearbook.
When the boat's racing out of the marina area, the steering came loose and it broke, and when they did, the boat turned radically to the right.
And I looked at Cersei and I said, if I lose the tournament, I lost it right then.
If there was a sobering moment for the 73 Classic, was an unfortunate accident.
The first thing that always comes to my mind in 73 is I lost one of my closest friends at that Classic. Vernon Folks and I were very close.
And Vernon Folks was a great fisherman, and he'd made a couple of items that you could put on the bottom of the handle of a fishing rod. But anyway, he was there as a sponsor.
More to the point, he was the owner of Fomac Manufacturing, which developed a rod rack and a transom mount. During the practice day, Vernon, I think it was Sam Powell, were going fishing together. Sam was an outdoor editor of the Tulsa World. And if I remember right, it was a nut on the steering column.
And when the boat's racing out of the marina area, the steering came loose. Now, that was back when we had some lousy steering systems, the cables and so forth. And it broke, and when they did, the boat turned radically to the right.
Threw the engine to the side, threw him out. Not only him, a couple other guys, and then the boat ran over it.
Roy Clark, entertainer, was there, and he and Carl Lawrence were in the boat right near and helped get him out of the water.
When we got in that afternoon, they told everybody about it, and it was a bad event, real bad.
When Vernon was killed, it really put a damper on everything. He was a fabulous person, friend of all anglers. It was something that was not expected, shocking. It took some courage for those guys to go back out there on that water. I don't know how they did it, because it weighed heavily on a bunch of them's mind.
I really had no desire to fish. It took a lot out of me because I felt quite close to Vernon. And I know it hurt Don.
It just completely wiped the tournament out for me. I tried to leave and Ray wouldn't let me.
I don't think we ever thought about canceling it, but it was a tough week for everybody.
He'd kind of put a damper on that Classic in a hurry.
It was unfortunate, a tragic loss, and a dear friend and a gentleman, and certainly one of the early supporters and pioneers of bass fishing.
In 1973, BASS was still in its infancy, but it was quickly becoming apparent that the sport of bass fishing was poised for growth.
The thing that seems to stand out was, at the time, Miller High Life had become the official sponsor of it. And Lee Wolf, who was doing some film production, this was for video film production.
The camera crew pulled up that last day, and they were sitting right out in front of us, and I set the hook and hung this real good fish. And the fish came up, and I said, good Lord, let me get him in. And he came back around, and he jumped. And they were They saw the size of the fish then. They got the cameras going. And the fish came back across, and he pulled down, and I was reaching for him, and the guy in the boat, I'll never forget it, he says, "Let me get one more jump out of him, Bill. Let me get one more jump out of him." And like a stupid idiot, I should have just gone on and tried to get the fish. I let him pull back out, and the fish comes up right here, jumped, and threw the worm. And I looked at Cersei, and I said, if I lose the tournament, I lost it right then.
You go back to the wide world of sports, the thrill of victory, agony of defeat. Well, it was told in that footage. There were some people that had some reservations about Miller High Life being involved with the Classic because bass fishing at the time was being sold and billed as a family sport. I certainly think it was proper to do it that way, but at the same time, Ray was building a business.
Well, it meant money. And of course, Ray meant money. When his dollar sign popped up, Ray's ears came up.
I thought that a beer sponsor wouldn't be that bad a deal if they'd put money in the kitty for the fishermen. That's what I think all of us were thinking about, but that all went in Ray's pocket.
It brought some awareness for other companies, major advertisers outside of the industry.
These people that were willing to come in and take it to the next level, put a lot of money behind it, make it more of a mainstream sport, be able to afford to produce the TV stuff that we had to take it to the next level.
But Miller Beer created some problems that we didn't really need at that time.
They wanted to call more shots than Ray and Bass was willing to let them call.
I remember when Ray was discussing it with the Miller High Life people and their ideas of how you would handle the event as far as beer. Ray said, we're happy to have your involvement, happy to have your money, and you can promote your involvement. But there won't be any beer in the boats, and there won't be any beer at the weigh-in. And we're going to a dry county.
Up next on Bassmaster Classic Yearbook.
Day 3 was probably one of the most exciting days and the longest days of any of the classes I attended.
And I said, Rayo, if you beat me, I'm gonna knock you in this lake.
He made 15 consecutive casts in which he caught a fish.
This was the Masters. This was the tournament to win the Classic, and I wanted it so bad.
Bassmaster Classic Yearbook has been brought to you by Bush, Berkeley Dry Lean, Motor Guide,
I think 73 Classic to me was probably ranks right up there with the first Classic. We had a new player in the game, and Bill Dance, furniture salesman from Memphis.
The thing that seems to stand out was that it brought about the challenge between Rayo Breckenridge and Bill Dance.
Day 3 was probably one of the most exciting days and the longest days of any of the classes I attended. Bill was anchored in 50 feet of water, full into deep water.
He can be deceptive. And sometimes when he's on really good fish, I remember in that tournament, I'd ask him a couple things about how he was catching his fish, and I don't know what he told me, but I finally just ran up on him on the lake that day. I saw him out there on this point. I just, rather than believe what he told me he caught him on, I just ran right up until he reeled his lure up, and sure enough, it was a worm on a Carolina rig.
I had 4, 8, 12 worms, Bill Jackson super floaters, and I was Carolina rigging them, and I was catching my fish from 32 to 52 feet of water.
He had a limit so fast to make your head swim. He made 15 consecutive casts in which he caught a fish.
The 12 worms I had, I'd have to take a cigarette lighter and fuse them back together to make them last. I only carried 12 of them. There were 4 of the pack.
That was the day that, when 20 minutes to go in the tournament, He asked me to start the engine. I reached down, hit the key. We either blew a power pack or a fuse. Well, I don't believe I've ever found out. We were dead in the water. He had a live well full of fish contending for the championship. I had bought an old roll-up hat that morning, a bright yellow one, because I'd left my ball cap at home. I started waving it when one boat went up the lake. Most of the other contestants had already gone in. And to this day, I don't remember who came over and got us. But he came over, Bill loaded his fish into their boat, and we made the way in.
Ladies and gentlemen, he has 10 bass, all 10 of them alive, which means that's 10 more ounces. Right now, he's just from about 21 to 2 pounds from the lead.
So we got in. Still thought I had a pretty good shot.
Not quite. 18 pounds, 12 ounces. Mighty close, mighty close.
And I was up there until Rayo comes waddling his fanny up the hill with his bag of fish. And he's standing there. And I said, Rayo, if you beat me, I'm going to knock you in this lake.
Rayo Breckenridge's catch, 7 bass, 12 pounds, 1 ounce. For yesterday, let's give him a great hand.
Rayo has won this trophy in 3 days of hard fishing, and he deserves a great hand from everybody here.
I was so put out and just so, man, I can't tell you how bad I wanted that tournament. A classic, man, this was the World Series. This was a Super Bowl. This was the Masters. This was the tournament to win the classic, and I wanted it so bad. And when I came back, I looked at my wife, and she said, everything happens for a reason. And Rayo was having some serious problems.
His wife was going blind at that time, and he had had a bad year farming, I believe, the word was, and that he needed that winnings to get her taken care of.
And so when I looked at it that way, I started feeling better about it. But I mean, I hugged his neck and I congratulated him, and he deserved to win.
Rayo was a lot of fun to be with, and he was really an interesting guy.
He was a country gentleman is what he was. He was a lot more comfortable in coveralls than he was in a business suit, for sure.
Came from a little town up in northeast Arkansas called Paragould.
Of course, we were all big buddies back then, and we all really knew each other well. And it was a loss when Rayo died.
Did very well in the trail for a number of years, but then unfortunately he got cancer and died a few years ago.
Rayo's fishing somewhere up above now, and I know he's catching them because he was a fishing machine. He was a good guy and a great fisherman.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.